if you are charged with a drug offense, and I mean possession of cocaine, possession of fentanyl, possession of heroin, possession of marijuana, or the large weight versions of those, trafficking in cocaine, trafficking in fentanyl, trafficking in marijuana, trafficking in methamphetamines, you name it. Those are really, in some ways, possession charges as well, just large amount. There are some rules that the state has to follow to convict you. And mere proximity to a bunch of drugs, folks, is not going to be enough to convict you and get you a possession or get you a trafficking. And there's a case I want to talk to you about today. It's called Person v. State. It's here in Florida. Person was convicted of trafficking in cocaine and possession of cocaine, kind of like the same thing. But what happened was the police were monitoring a house, and this house had like 40 or 50 people coming per hour. Yes, that is going to draw attention. It drew attention. So the SWAT team came to serve a search warrant because they figured and could see that people were being served. This is not rocket science, folks. And the SWAT team uses some bang distraction devices to make their way into the house and serve the search warrant. And guess what happens? I mean, there's like 12 people in this house, and about 9 of them are bailing out the back door when they hear all these noises. One of them is the guy charged that we're talking about, Person. There are drugs everywhere in this house. In the living room, in the kitchen, they actually have some sort of drug cooking setup. In the bedrooms, there are drugs everywhere. It's all cocaine, and Person is charged with trafficking in cocaine. He is convicted of trafficking in cocaine. However, he files an appeal and says, look, you don't have possession. You can't prove that I possessed any of the stuff that was in that house, even though you established that I was in that house. Now, how does this work, folks? Well, I won't bore you with the details of what constructive possession of cocaine and drugs mean in the state of Florida, except to tell you that the prosecutors have got to prove that you had knowledge that the drugs were there and that you had dominion and control over those drugs. Of course, Person had knowledge that there were drugs in this house because they were everywhere and they were in plain view. But did he have dominion and control? There's 12 people there. What makes you think Person had dominion and control? You did send him to prison on a trafficking charge, but was that a legit conviction? Was that a legit possession? So the court looks at it and they look at the evidence and they say, well, the state did show that he had knowledge that were drugs, and the state did show that he was close to the drugs while he was in the house. But again and again, we keep saying this, mere proximity to contraband is not enough to establish dominion and control. You got knowledge. Can you prove that he had dominion and control of this cocaine, right? The court says that the state presented no evidence that Person had control over that cocaine. They presented no evidence that Person was an owner or even an occupant of the home. They got no evidence on that stuff. Now, here's the problem though, and I might have skipped over this at the beginning. Person was darting out the back door. He fled. He fled the joint, okay? So the state said, well, because you were fleeing, that flight is consciousness of your guilt. In some cases, if a bank was robbed and you run out with the money, flight is consciousness of guilt. But in this case, the court said, state, you didn't establish any sort of connection between Person's attempt to run out the back door and any control he might have had over the cocaine versus the 12 other people in the house. Person flight can be explained by the distraction devices used by the SWAT team when it entered the residence, which created a scene of chaos, according to the testimony. The court went on to say, at worst, Person's flight can be taken as evidence that he was aware of the illegal activity taking place in the residence, but it does not imply that among the 12 people in the house, he was able to exert control over the cocaine. Guess what? Case dismissed, prison sentence gone, case gone. The state did not prove that Person even so much as possessed, much less trafficked in the drugs in that house. This is a good case.